What is up, guys and gals? My name is Splattercat, and it is time for Friday Weekly Indie Newcomer. This week, we're going to be taking a look at Lo-Fi Studios' Kenshi, which is a very cool game. This game has absolutely 100% dominated my time in the last week. I got this game 2 days ago, just to give you a little bit of scale. I got this game about 2 days ago, and I think my Steam played right now is 14 hours. So I've pretty much, this is all I've been doing is like consuming Kenshi at the moment. Just absolutely just like, just totally getting down on the Kenshi. Now, what is Kenshi? You'll notice that I've decided to load into the game right now because this game is really complicated. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on underneath the hood of Kenshi, and I didn't really feel like I had a really amazing opportunity to show the game off properly. So I really wanted to make good use of my time, and I'm probably going to do some edits here and there to make sure that everybody sees all the interesting things that there are to see in Kenshi. But Kenshi is an RPG strategy civilization builder. Basically everything you love in gaming is all mashed into one game. So if you took Mount & Blade Warband and then you combined it maybe a little bit, not with Minecraft, I'd say maybe if you combined it with any city builder. So you took Mount & Blade Warband and you combined it with SimCity, and then combined it with your favorite RPG, let's say Neverwinter Nights, and you would essentially have Kenshi. Like, there's a lot of ideas going into this game, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's get going with it. The first things first, let's talk about my player character at the beginning of the game. This guy, Vashu, this is my player character. Now, I didn't choose that name for him. I just left it as the default. This is the guy that I created when I started the game off. And if we take a look, we've got inventory, stats, map, tech, and help. Let's go ahead and start with the inventory. So every character has their own inventory. If you look at the bottom box right here, it's a little buggy right now. Usually they have little portraits. They'll load eventually, but at the moment they appear to have not decided to load. They just don't want to show up. They're off on a smoke break or something. Every single one of these little guys down here is a separate character with his own stats. You can see them changing right here in these two boxes. They all are like good at different things. I've trained them all to do different stuff, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But the one we want to talk about right now in the beginning is the player character, because he's the most important. He's the guy that we made for ourselves. So Vashu is him. If we go to his inventory, you'll see that he's carrying a bunch of stuff around. He's got his own equipment. He's got himself a katana right here. This game is essentially like if you took the setting of Fallout and then mixed it with Six String Samurai, that would be what you got out of this game. So I came up into this village right now in order to vendor some items. So I'm going to show you guys the movement. We just rubber band box people like any other real-time strategy game, and we just run them around. And so if you look right there, you'll see that they've all started to move at their own different pace. The pace at which they move is decided by how much they're carrying. So if I go through each of my characters here, and I understand this is going to be a bit like trying to explain, not necessarily Dwarf Fortress, but let's say we sat down and I tried to explain to you both Starbound and Neverwinter Nights in one sitting, and I tried to do it in like a 20-minute period. There would just be too much to talk about in order for me to get to the main gist of the point, and I was taught to make it pop when I was writing these little videos and these little reviews. But in some cases, there are some games that simply cannot be condensed to the point where you make them pop. It's just not possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on over to this trade center, and if you look around the city, this is one of the main cities. When you go inside a building, it hacks off the tops of all the buildings. I don't know why it does that, but I needed to sell some stuff that I had gotten while fighting some bandits a little bit earlier. I've got myself some rum because we can build our own town. That's one of the special features of this game, is if you took Mount & Blade and you allowed them to build your own city, which then could ally with factions and have diplomacy of its own and do all kinds of crazy stuff, that would be Kenshi. So I'm going to vendor off some of this rum so I can get myself some money. And popping in between characters here, we're going to sell some bread, sell off some more rum. There we go. And I think the merchant is actually about to have a very full inventory, unfortunately. We don't have any room to put that sword there, so I'm just going to drop it on his floor because I'm humorous like that, and if I can't sell stuff to you, I'll just drop it on the floor of your house because you know what? You forced me to be a litter bug. I don't like to litter, but if you don't have room in your inventory, guess what? I'm going to litter all over you. Now, we need to find another vendor that we can sell some of this more valuable stuff to. And as you can see, the towns are fairly complicated. I can go into any one of these buildings that I want, talk to anybody that I want. They'll have little dialogues above their heads. There are stores around. There's a police station right here where you can take bounties and get missions. Let's see. But for the most part, the game is completely and totally unstructured at the moment. So if you're like, well, what is the point of Kenshi? Like, what do you do in this game? And I would say that the point of the game is doing whatever the hell you feel like doing. You can speed the game up, so I'm going to do that so we can get more stuff done. And as Saru, Mortez, Dezerka, and Vashu arrive over here on the right side, we're going to sell some stuff to this vendor. It appears as though night is dawning upon us. Or I guess night is dusking if I wanted to be that more, if I wanted to be a little bit more appropriate there. Night does not dawn, it dusks. And it looks like this vendor is not home, which is weird. He might have gone to his house and gone to bed. I don't know if the AI has their own little routines in this game as of right now. It's not something that I've really looked into, but in any case, let's go ahead and find another place. We'll go on over this gas mask vendor. That seems like an oddly specific thing to be selling when you're in the middle of this ridiculous samurai desert. A gas mask. That's the last thing that I would want to have on my face, but hey, one of our portraits loaded. Awesome. And it's also awesome that it's Orsum that loaded. He is our resident ore miner. His name was Orsum, so I figured he would be awesome at mining ore. Little did I know that that probably wasn't the case. Let's sell off some of that loot right there. There is room. It's right there. I can see it. I can see it right in front of you. Allow me the room to fine, I'll take my shorts back then, and then I'll sell you that because it's worth more money, and then I'll throw my shorts on your floor because I am a terrible house guest. Like, when I stay over, I'm just going to throw my undies all over the place. Let's head back to the good part of the game now. And this is the part that I really, really enjoy. So I'm going to speed up the game, and we're going to go on back. Now, you will notice that there's a loose assemblage of all of my other party members right now hanging out on the opposite side of the desert. And what are they doing on the opposite side of the desert? Well, you might say that they were hanging out in this little town until I told you that I built this little town from the ground up. So let's get on in over there. I'm actually not going to showcase that. The game is very buggy right now. I want to talk about that. So the game is in alpha. It does crash quite a bit at the moment. So that's one of the things that I did want to point out. You get about 35 minutes to 45 minutes of gameplay, at least for me, before the whole thing decides to die. But now that we've used up our travel time, one thing that I did want to talk about while we go through here is this is the town that I have built. So let's go through some of the menus and talk about what this game has on offer. So I'll put the time back over here. I'm going to go through each building one by one. So every single building here, I've put in each one of these buildings, and then I've also built everything inside of them. And each of these buildings has a function. It's a raw building with a workbench inside of it that does something different. And so this is where the game starts to work in some of those Terraria, Minecraft type ideas where you automate everything. Maybe even a little bit of Factorio in there somewhere. It looks like production has ceased over here, and I think I know why. Why has production ceased? You guys go over there, you guys go over there, and you guys go over there. There we go. Everybody do the stuff that you're supposed to be doing, otherwise I should become frustrated with you. Or are we full up on something? Hold on, I'm looking at my assembly line right now. Okay, we're full up. Never mind. That's one of the things that I haven't really worked out is kind of that end product. But let's talk about it. So this building on the left, what is this? This is a research bench, and you'll see that I have a man named Skittles. He is working on all my research. That's right, if you want to have the best technology in the galaxy, you should have a guy named Skittles work on it because he's obviously the village eccentric. What does this workbench do? Well, it provides us with research. If you take a look over here on the left, right now we're researching stone mining 3, and you're saying, well, why do I care about that? Why is that any good? Well, if we take another look across the base, I've got a stone mine over here. And this stone mine is producing raw materials which are then fed into this stone processor, which become the bare bones blocks for building the buildings. And really, say that 10 times fast. I almost didn't make it. My tongue was wrapped around itself, and while some people might find that impressive, I find it a little bit cumbersome considering that it's part of creating these little reviews for you. This building right here, what is this? This is a grain silo. This grinds down the grain that is coming from our wheat field over here into flour. I'm not using it at the moment because the product that you get out of it is just bread and it doesn't sell for that much money. The next building, Orsum, is currently being awesome at being our village blacksmith. He's sitting over here working on nothing. Let me go ahead and queue him up for a new task. We're going to tell him to build, oh, I don't know, build me some rusting blades, I guess. So let's go ahead and queue up a bunch of rusting blades. If we take a look at Orsum, this is a good time to talk about the skills, and I realize everything I'm doing in this review is a little bit inchoate, and I'm trying to move very, very quickly. But what I did want to show, I need to show off as much of the game as I can, so you'll apologize if I'm moving quickly here, but I am trying to explain things. If we go to his stats page, this seems like a great time to talk about all the stats that are imbued in each character. Now, a lot of these haven't been implemented as of just yet because the game is actively in development. You can get it through Steam, by the way, or you can get it through Desura, which is where I originally saw it. We've got stats, so strength, that affects anything having to do with carrying people or working with heavy weapons or doing heavy stuff like laboring, which is down here in the bottom right corner. Endurance hasn't been implemented yet. Toughness is your ability to take damage. It gives you a flatline damage resistance. It also takes the point at which you are knocked out in combat. You level that up by getting beaten up, so the game does function a lot like the Elder Scrolls. So as you use a skill, that character will get better at that skill. Dexterity. Dexterity affects your ability to attack quickly, and so as this goes up, you will attack faster and faster, and you will be able to cycle through blocking faster and faster in combat. The weapon skills pretty much determine how much damage you deal in combat. That's as you level these up by hitting people in the face with the object, you learn how to hit them in the face better, and soon you will hit them in the face so hard that their face just collapses inwards like a ridiculous Akira moment. Now then, we've also got our active skills over here. So we've got melee attack. Well, these are also passives. I shouldn't say active. That's a little bit of a misnomer. Melee attack. This is your ability to hit the enemy, so how accurate you are. Melee defense. How accurate you are at blocking. It makes you better at that. These right here have not been added. Mass combat, I would assume. I've seen some pretty big battles in this game between like 50 versus 50, and I was hoping we would get to see some combat in this episode, but we may or may not. I may have to do a little bit of a cut so you can see how the combat works. Aero defense, none of that has been implemented. Thievery, that's your ability to pick locks, open safes, escape from cages, and keep people confined to them. Athletics is your running speed. Field medic obviously allows you to heal people with bandages. Engineer allows you to build buildings faster. Weaponsmith is how fast he can craft weapons, so as you can see, he's been leveling that up like crazy. Armorsmith is the exact same thing. Science is how fast you do research, and laboring is how fast you do grunt work. Now then, that was a mouthful, but we made it all the way through, so I hope you caught that in there. You can run that through 3 or 4 more times before you do anything else if you really want to know the different skill sets that are available to your characters. But let's continue taking a look at buildings before I get run off. This right here is a power generator. You'll see that at the bottom, or I guess more on the left side, it'll say power. We're using up 25 of our 30 power right now. You can also have a battery backup. This little button right here, public or private, it basically sets your hostile flag. So if you're at private and anybody comes into your city, they automatically get just gang mobbed by everybody here. I've got it on public because I've got myself a store, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Inside this building, we've got a cooking stove, which allows us to take water and flour. The water comes from these wells over here. It allows you to take water and flour and produce bread. We've got a still so that we can create ourselves some huske, or some rum, I guess. We're making moonshine, or we're making like eye-bleeding quality rum. The kind of rum that would just rapidly cause you not only to go blind, but everyone in your vicinity to go blind as well the second you open the bottle. Now, she uses water and wheat to do that. We've got a hemp fabric loom. That's right, we can grow weed. Here it is. Look, we have a weed field. How awesome is that? The game allows you to grow weed, but you can't smoke it. You just turn it into hemp. Apparently, we've only figured out how to harvest the wrong part. They ignore those wonderful sticky little buds, and they get on over here, and they turn it into fabric. Hempen fabric, which can be turned into clothes later on. That right there is a storage receptacle for flour. That kind of helps you in your input-output process, and I'll talk about that if I have a little bit of time. It's kind of the boring bones of the whole Factorio process here in Kenshi, so I'll ignore those right now. This over here is my storage building, and I have to send somebody inside so that we can see the interior. So let's send Vashu over. He's going to be your tour guide for this whole thing. And off he goes. Let's send him on into this building. And Vashu, now that he's in the building, I've got general purpose storage over here, so just chests for random stuff. We've got like med kits, we've got a roll of hemp right there, we've got building materials. On this side, it's a crate for building materials. This is the rum barrel, a very important spot in our society. I think if that ran out, we might have a serious problem on our hands. And in this building, it's our general domicile. So we've got armor storage, that's what these barrels are. So anytime over here, let's say for example, he finishes a weapon, he'll bring it and put it in these weapon racks later on. Or if he finishes an armor, he'll put it in these armor racks. These beds right here are for convalescing wounded people. If you take a look at our blood and health, let me see if I can find somebody first that's wounded so I can explain this a little bit better. Nobody's wounded. There hasn't been a battle in quite some time. Our city has been blessed with a lot of peace, and for the purposes of gameplay, that's actually sort of boring. But, you know, in terms of keeping people alive, it's a pretty cool thing. Now, these beds are for convalescing wounded people, and there are a couple types of wounds. So if you look, these bars are green. Now, if this bar was yellow and down to, like, let's say right here, it would mean that he was wounded down that far, but we had bandaged it up. Every single one of these body parts on every character can be wounded, and it has different effects for each wound. So let's say that your leg gets taken out, you walk a lot slower. If your arm gets taken out, if it's your weapon arm, you attack a lot worse, but if it's your other arm, your off arm, your blocking becomes a lot worse. Stomach wounds just bleed like crazy, and your blood right here is your overall health. As you bleed out, you'll finally die. Head wounds, I don't know what that affects. I can't tell you. Head and chest, not so sure. All I know is that your stomach, your chest, and your head tend to bleed really, really badly until you bandage them. Now then, we've gotten through that. These are my stone quarries. You'll see that I've assigned a bunch of workers to sit here and mine out stone. Over here, it'll have the output of the particular node in question, along with how many workers are working in it. And so we've got 5 workers working if we wanted to sound like a Christmas song. Over here, we've got ourselves an iron mine. So they're mining out iron. That's the progress bar for each little bit of iron. You can see it's quite a bit slower than the rock mine. Over here on this side, they've stopped working again. Let's find out why. Oh, it's because I was full on building supplies, that's right. So I had a crate over here for the building blocks of my city, and they've run out. That's probably going to mess with this over here too in just a minute, but we'll finish looking at these buildings before we go any further. This building right here is my shop counter. If you take a look at the shop counter, I built this, and all of these things right here, occasionally merchants will come through and they'll buy out your stock, and it saves you the time of having to run to cities like the one on the hill over there that we built, or there's a trading post over off that way. One thing that I do like about this game is how you learn the terrain after a while. I've built my base in a very safe area, and as you can see, the world is very large. If you look at that arrow right there, that's my camera moving around, and so if I'm panning around that much, I'm not moving very far. The map does go on quite a ways, and I'll explain what some of these things are. These little circles are trade posts. They tend to have really cheap raw materials that you can buy and take to other areas. That's right, if you want to play this game as a trader, you can 100% play this game as a trader of either variety. You can join a faction and betray them, or you can move objects around the field in order to make a profit. These squares right here are actual cities. Some of them have a little bit of an identity crisis going on. So you've got Port South, which is neither in the south nor a port. It's in the middle of the desert. Who knows? Maybe it was named before whatever apocalyptic event wiped out the whole thing. You've got Catan over here, which is often being settled. And then you've got these little red circles, which are enemy villages. So these are cannibal villages where they run around and eat people. And so if you mouse over these places, it will give you statistics about each one. It'll tell you the faction that it's part of. So Clownsteady here is part of the Dead Cat faction. They are neutral with us. They have a 0 relation. They have 24 people living in that city. The population growth is 120, and the population max is 24, so they've pretty much capped out at the moment. Clownsteady is constantly being attacked. If you wanted to get into a fight, you go to Clownsteady. In fact, I may go over there to show you battles in just a minute if nobody attacks our city. I say somebody should be attacking our city any moment because like 5 minutes before I started recording this, a guy came up to the edge of our city and started swearing at us, and then I beat him to death. And typically when I do that, his friends come along later. Now, the bodies out here are no longer laying along the periphery of our village, so I'm assuming they all limped back home. Killing people in this game is a lot more difficult than it sounds, but as I said, let's go ahead and take a look at this last building, because we've looked at the map and we've looked at a lot of other stuff. Every single one of these characters, by the way, when you first recruit these guys, you can customize them. So if you wanted them to look a certain way, if you wanted them to be male, female, you want to change their name, every single person is a personal creation. So in case you're into that sort of thing. Over here we have our training dummy building. These training dummies aren't incredibly useful, but they allow people to increase their melee attack, which is their accuracy. They don't get weapon skill from it, they don't get dexterity from it, all they get is melee attack. So it'll make them super accurate, but they'll hit like a flea, and also they'll probably just not be very skillful about doing it. In that case, if you wanted to take a look at how the building system works, I'm going to go ahead and build myself a worthless building here that I don't necessarily need. We'll go to our build menu. So you click on this little tab right here, and in the build menu, everything's neatly organized. That's one of the great things about this game is even though the UI looks incredibly rudimentary, it looks like a very simple, let's say Final Fantasy UI, where you would just cut it all to grayscale, put a minor fade on it, but the whole thing works. I've never had any time in this game where I've gotten lost and not been able to figure out where something is. It has a comprehensive help menu that has about 17 pages. By the time you finish the 17 page, and it's short, and it's got pictures too, which are pretty sweet. It's got pictures and little arrows going to things. Essentially, it's pretty much idiot-proof. But anyways, by the time you finish the help guide, you should know how to play the game fairly well. You will have to kind of blind man your way through certain things that aren't explained, but it does a decent job. Let's go to build a building, and I think I'm going to build a saloon because we need another large building out of which... Actually, no, we'll just do a regular house. We'll just do a small, normal house. Now, we can rotate using the left and right daggers on our keyboard, like so. I call them daggers because that's what we always called them in my programming classes. And I'm going to drop this building right here. And then I hit the spacebar to finalize it, and now you can see that it's put in a primitive of the entire thing. Now, what do I want to do here? I want to get somebody to build this building, and I don't want it to be Vashu because he's not any good at it. Mortez Dezerka is my village engineer, so if I shift right click, it will tell him to be the village engineer forever. So if you shift right click on any job, it puts it down here in their job list, and that's what they do forever. So you'll see here, Terran, for example, is assigned to my small farm. He will just do that forever unless there's an enemy that's hostile in the area. Lauren and Spike, they've been assigned forever to draw water, and they will go to fetch the water until the day that they are grown, if I was going to quote Jungle Book a little bit vicariously. Let's make him add the materials a little bit quicker, and what you'll see is that we need 30 materials for this building, and it does actively build it. Let's have everybody else help too, so that it goes quicker. Saru and Vashu, jump in on that, and so you'll see they go over to that crate that has our building supplies in it, they run back and they start slamming them into place. And this thing should get built pretty quickly because Vashu and Mortez are pretty experienced engineers. Saru's no good at it. Saru is kind of our village badass. I hired her as a bodyguard. Her attack skills are way higher than everybody else's. She's essentially the village crazy lady that just slashes everybody to death. Like, you know, in animes, or even in just like samurai westerns, where the two guys square off and then all of a sudden they're like, shing, and they go past each other really fast and one guy starts squirting blood everywhere. Saru would be the character that survives that battle. She's pretty much the village badass. If we really need something handled, we need somebody to have their face punched in, she is the lady that does it. Now then, you can see here, the condition of the building is increasing. Just in RTS fashion, if we wanted to attack other people's buildings, we can tear them down and destroy them. The condition is essentially their HP. The materials needed, that's pretty self-explanatory. Right now, they're pipelining materials on into the building so that it can get completed. And so there it is. One thing I do like about this game is your ability to terraform the world and force it to be what you want it to be. I could have built this city anywhere. If I had built my city up here in this desert, it would be a war-torn city where I was constantly fighting with enemies and trying to take every inch of ground from hostile forces. I built it in a relative safe area. There's not a whole lot of bandits down here. In my experience, bandits increase as you go from the south to the north. So up here, they are everywhere, and they travel in armies of 40 to 50. There's different ranks of bandits, so there's hungry bandits, desert bandits, sand bandits. Ooh, we completed stone mining 3. There are also sand ninjas, which are just frankly terrifying. If you ever find yourself face to face with a sand ninja, you should run away just as fast as you can, because honestly, the addition of sand to a ninja just made him grumpier. It's all in his crevices, and every time he moves, he just gets angrier and angrier. Now, with this building, I could build something inside of it right now, but I don't have anything really that I want to build. I just wanted to show you how the building works. We can toggle this door, and if I click this door, I can set the access from private to public, which will allow enemy or ally NPCs to come and use our facilities if they had wanted to, just in case they needed to make a little bathroom break while traveling across the plains. On this side, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go track down a battle, and I'm going to splice in a battle so you guys can see the combat system. It's remarkably similar to any other, like Neverwinter Nights, or it's similar to any game that uses a second timer, but it's basically turn-based, but on a couple second timers, so like every 0.68 seconds you'll attack, and you can block every 0.56 seconds, and if somebody overwhelms your defense, that's that. Essentially, it's roughly real-time turn-based, and it's kind of a weird thing to explain, but I'll try and find a fight here now that I've showed you everything in the city building, and we'll get that done. Now then, here's how combat works. I wanted to take a look at just the combat system, and I wanted to show you guys like a bigger battle, but unfortunately I ran around for about an hour, just couldn't find one. Sometimes there's just not a fight to be had in this game, because that's not really the point. Like, there is a lot of battle in this game, but I would like to stress the point that this is a world builder, where the point of the game is not necessarily slaughtering people, but more, honestly, the game is about building your own city and interacting with other cities, and now sometimes the outcome of that is going to be battle and slaughter, but warriorship does not take center stage in this game unless you really try and make it be so. Here you'll see that we have a few enemies. So we've got this ginger fellow right here who's got kind of a weird, oh, I have no idea, he's got like a Morgan Spurlock thing going on, except he's got more hair. Over here, we've got this guy who's got a crazy collar, and these are your basic bandits. These guys aren't very good. They're pretty much new. They're running around the desert in just rags. They've got pipes, and these are the guys that are terrifying to you when you're by yourself. Now, obviously, we're crewed up right now. Like, we are on the lines of just like an outgoing ass whooping right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click these guys, and we're going to join into this battle, and I'm going to explain things as they move along. So as you'll see, everybody will join the fight. And the red right there is the damage that my troops are taking. The green is the damage that they're dealing. And so you'll see that everything kind of devolves into this little chaotic battlefield. And the really impressive thing about this, the thing that I like, is if you get into a battle with like 100, 120 combatants, the whole thing looks like a battle. So this entire area would be embroiled in conflict. And that's a really cool thing that you can kind of just pan around and look at individual people fighting each other. At the end of the battle, I'm going to give the medic command, and anybody with a med kit is going to run around and heal people. And so we'll talk about that here. Right there, you can see that damage being bandaged. If it's red damage, it won't heal until it's been bandaged properly. So you really do need to bandage people who are wounded on the battlefield. I saw a couple of people take reasonable amounts of damage. He's just unconscious, that enemy. That enemy's unconscious as well. We didn't do a very good job at killing them, unfortunately. We just knocked him out cold. We taught him a lesson, but it was a non-violent Gandhi-ish lesson, I guess. Although I don't think Gandhi would have knocked him out either. I think he would have just like let him have everything he had. Orsum is a slow turd. If you look back here, I always have this problem with Orsum. He's just like, bringing up the rear. I call him the caboose. That's his nickname. because he just like never is anywhere where he needs to be, and that's due to the fact that his athletic skill absolutely sucks compared to everybody else's. I don't know why he's always so slow. It says he's weightless with regards to his encumberment, so who even knows anymore? That was a little battle right there, and while I do my pros and cons, I'm going to do my best to go and find another one, but we may just wander around the desert for a little bit while I do this part. I'm going to ad-lib it slightly maybe. Now in this pros and cons section, I started with pros last week, so I'm going to start with cons this time because there are some very important things you need to know about Kenshi before you jump in on the experience. The first thing is that Kenshi is quite buggy at the moment. It's a game that's still in development. It's only in like its 0.5 form, but it's come a long way. I've been playing Kenshi for about a year now, just on and off, just checking out the demos every now and again to see what's been improved and what's been added, and they've done a really good job at that. But the cons, I would say, is that the game is very crashy right now. I've tried a number of configurations, and none of them have managed to keep my game up and running for more than, say, an hour at any given time before I inevitably get a nasty little crash with like a 183 error. Supposedly there is a way to solve that, but then I think it seems to be sort of specific to people's rigs. Like some people seem to be able to fix it and others don't. So expect to be crashing every now and again while playing the game. Other cons is that if you're looking for a lot of combat in this game, you're going to have trouble finding it unless you set up here in the north. If you set up here in the north, there's going to be a lot of fighting, a lot of interesting things happening. If you set up in the south like a weenie, like I did, essentially you're never going to see bad guys ever. Nothing terrible is ever going to happen to you because they never make it past any of these forts. They all get annihilated. Additionally, in the endgame, you're going to find that a lot of the enemies get killed off. This is another faction right here in case you were wondering. That guy right there, he is part of the United Cities, and they are samurai. We could kill them and we could take their stuff if we wanted to, but I think they're more badass than me. Yeah, they have really good attack skills. Probably a terrible idea. On the other end of the con section is sometimes there are some systems that just don't work properly, and you've got to sit there and fiddle with them, and I think this is a problem that's endemic to a lot of sandbox building games where sometimes you just can't figure out why the output won't go where you want it to go or why they've stopped working all of a sudden. You are going to run into that problem in this game as well. Now, this game does have the excuse that it's in very, very early alpha, and if I had to say one thing, if I had to take one game that has the most potential, it would be Kenshi. It's been why I've been holding off on talking about this game. Additionally, another con that I will say is that the travel times are really just gnarly. Hopefully in the future, they decide to add in vehicles or something like that. Because you can build power generators and things of that nature, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume that because we've got an alternator, that we could also, we've got a gas-powered alternator, we could easily create a vehicle, if you get what I'm saying right there. Now, I'm going to move on to the pros, because this game has loads and loads of pros. If you're looking for a sandbox game in the vein of Mount & Blade Warband, Kenshi is the one that I would move to next if you've burned out every mod and you just don't feel like playing Warband anymore. The reason I say this is because it is the next up-and-coming sandbox experience by comparison to other strategy games. I mean, strategy sandbox games, not that forthcoming lately. And so with Kenshi, what you've got is a clear idea that's being published at a really rapid rate. I mean, they're putting in new features all the time. The game really has a lot of ground to cover, but it's got a lot of great ideas that are all coming together pretty flawlessly, in fact. So with regards to just the potential of the game, I would say that's one of its biggest pros. And other pros, if you're looking for something where you get to build your own city in the middle of a map that has its own factions, I mean, you can't really find other games that allow you to do that. I can't think of any other game right now, just off the top of my head, that allows you to walk across a huge map with a fleet full of samurai, building your own city in the middle of the desert, and then choosing who you're going to ally with and who you're going to fight for the remainder of the game. And it does it with a unique combat system that takes some time to get used to, but at the same time is different and distinct enough from other strategy sandbox offerings in order to stand on its own 2 feet. With regards to other pros, I would say that I like the graphical style as well. I think it needs a little bit of polish. Obviously, you're going to see some tearing and some things of that nature. Was there a fight down here? What are all these guards doing? They're making me nervous. Was there a battle around here somewhere? You can pick through the dead bodies if you get lucky. Anyways, as I was saying, with regards to the pros, there's a lot of good things about this game, and I think this is one of those underrated titles that really has not gotten the attention it deserves, and so I've decided to feature it here on Weekly Indie Newcomer. If you're interested in downloading the game and trying it out for yourself, look down below. They do have a demo available. I'll have the full download link as well for both Steam and Desura. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me here, and to take a look at Lo-Fi Studios, I believe is the name. If I got that wrong, I apologize, and I'll annotate it, but I forgot to put it down there. I've got all that stuff kind of in the back of my head, and then in the excitement of playing the game, I just forget what I'm talking about. Down in the bottom, I'll have all the download links. Check it out. Kenshi's a really, really cool game. My name is Splattercat. This is the Nerd Castle. This was our Weekly Indie Newcomer, and take care out there, everybody.